Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have just had a big upsurge in volcanic activity across much of the Ring of Fire. In fact, actually globally. The more I've been looking into this and researching into different earthquake swarms and different volcanoes, I've been finding more and more are active in just the past few days, but it's really centered over the Ring of Fire. But this is all happening just days before a blood moon total lunar eclipse that'll be hitting the Ring of Fire. It's going to be viewable from the entire Ring of Fire. So this is quite interesting. Now here we see Google Earth, and we see the locations of these recent eruptions and also some recent earthquake activity. So for example, here we had a magnitude 7.1 earthquake, deep earthquake, 620 kilometers down. That's basically the lowermost limit for earthquakes, pretty much. Back on the 22nd of February, well, today, the 26th, we had Mayon Volcano and Kilauea Volcano pop off in the Philippines. Here we can see both of them. So here we see Kilauea Volcano erupt. This ash cloud went up about 2.5 kilometers or even a little bit more than that. This was a big eruption. We also had Mayon Volcano erupt in the Philippines. We can see that video here. This is a pyroclastic flow that formed, and this ash cloud rose up quite significantly as well, though it stayed a little bit more horizontal, at least initially, as you can see. But you don't get pyroclastic flows from tiny eruptions. Now, thankfully, it stayed isolated to the slopes of Mayon Volcano, but this in general is not insignificant, you could say. So we had those two, and again, occurring just a few days after this very deep magnitude 7.1 earthquake, the biggest since the 8th of December when we had the magnitude 7.6 in Japan, 2 days before that magnitude 7 in the Yukon, okay? So the biggest earthquake in like 2.5 months, effectively, about 2.5 months. And then right afterwards, these two pop off, but it's more than just that. We also had Luotolo Volcano today in Indonesia erupt, and that was quite significant. I think I have, yeah, so here we can check that out. Here we have that eruption. So not as high of an ash cloud as the others I've just shown you, but significant eruption picked up on camera by the geologic agency there, MAGMA. And if we go back, we also had Semeru Volcano erupt 2 days prior on the 24th of February. So that was, and Semeru Volcano has actually been erupting basically continuously for a few weeks now. It's one of these very active volcanoes that we have. But the last eruption, as far as I know, was the 24th, at least the last big significant one. I don't have video of that for you. But another big eruption occurred on the 24th. Check this out. Here we have Vanuatu. And so this is one of the islands of Vanuatu, specifically it's Ambea Island, and this ash cloud rising up about 2.53 kilometers. This was a big eruption, took them by surprise. The alert level is raised from 3, and the highest rating is 5. So there's a level 1 before, now it's the level 3. And that was back on the 24th. So again, just a couple days ago. Let me show you specifically where. Here we have Google Earth, and look at this. We have Ambea Island right there, and then back on the 14th of February, we had a magnitude 6.4 earthquake, one of the strongest earthquakes within this 2.5 month time period that I've been talking about. So that was a very strong earthquake, only eclipsed by that magnitude 7.1 recently, but look at the proximity. They're right next to each other. Now, is this volcano specifically connected to that is this eruption or this earthquake specifically connected to this volcanic system? Well, there is a bit of distance, but I'll explain how they are connected. But was it like happening in the chambers underneath or something? Probably not. It's 141 kilometers away, okay? But you look at the proximity in time and location, there's clearly something there. What this could have done was the seismic shock wave from that could have destabilized any magma chamber underneath this volcano, because you have an actual pressure wave pushing through that area. And that can cause, for example, dissolved gases within the magma to all of a sudden exit out of solution, bubble up, and now you get this explosivity. So about, what was this, 10 days after we get the eruption there, and that took people by surprise, they're probably connected together. That's what we saw in Kamchatka. So if we go up, we see some other earthquake activity here, magnitude 6 here, and this is what, like the Solomon Islands, and then we had some deep earthquakes around Fiji during this time frame. And also this magnitude 6.1 there, Kermadec Trench. We see this is all in February. If you go up here, we've been having a lot of earthquake activity along the Kamchatka Peninsula for a while now. I mean, this is an active area. There are dozens and dozens of volcanoes, as you can see, along the Kamchatka Peninsula. But here's the thing. We had that magnitude 8.8 megaquake July 29th of 2025, and multiple volcanoes started erupting afterwards and have stayed active since. For example, Krishenikov Volcano. I do not have it here, but let me type it in. Krishenikov Volcano should pop right up. This volcano was inactive for 600 years. And then after that magnitude 8.8 megaquake back in July last year, all of a sudden it woke up. And it's been staying active. So it wasn't a one-off eruption. Now it has been active continuously since then. We'll go back to this, but let's check out our Morova data here. This tells us earthquake or volcanic activity effectively. So you go to Krishenikov Volcano here and look at this. We'll see the thermal anomaly starting up right there after that magnitude 8.8, and it has stayed consistent now since then. So there have been variations in that. It started off touching very high activity, but it's basically settled off continuously to high activity. That is where it is now, and there are other volcanoes that have been active around the Kamchatka Peninsula as well. We just recently had a variety of earthquakes there. We had 2 magnitude 6 earthquakes back to back, I think a couple weeks ago or less. And then just yesterday, we had like a 5.7 and a variety of other magnitude 5s. Still a lot of activity here. But the thing is that magnitude 8.8 megaquake, so strong, that shock wave that propagated out clearly destabilized some of these magma chambers and just the overall volcanic system, the piping, the conduits. And then that caused a lot of energy flux upwards. And now we're having volcanoes erupt in Kamchatka. Well, same thing here. When you have a deep earthquake, that energy is able to propagate out further and can be felt over a more widespread region than it would be if it was shallow. Now, deep earthquakes aren't that destructive in terms of the surface and buildings falling down and things of that nature, thank God. But they are felt over a wider region because the hypocenter simply is just deeper in the earth. It can propagate out further. So we get these 2 eruptions after that magnitude 7.1. And of course, these guys are also fairly there along the periphery. Look at that. It's like a nice circle, a nice perimeter around that magnitude 7.1. And we've been also getting this activity with Vanuatu, as I mentioned. Well, guess what? Here is something to be aware of. And we'll talk more about this total lunar eclipse, this blood moon. I have a video coming out on that soon. I really think we're going to see a simultaneous blood moon with a eruption at Kilauea on the 3rd. It's possible. It's a high percentage likelihood that occurs. I'll explain that in my other video. But if we go over here, this is not the Ring of Fire anymore, but this is worth noting. Tenerife, these islands here off the coast of Africa, this island, or just in general, these islands here, the Canary Islands, have been experiencing an earthquake swarm since February began. So a bit more than 3 weeks now. Thousands of earthquakes, most of them microtremors, like tiny little earthquakes. They can even be negative magnitude. You know, they're not big, but more than 6,000, it's probably more than 7,000 at this point. It's hard to get an accurate number. I wasn't able to find the exact data feed for that, but it's been thousands and thousands. Well, if we go here, we actually just had a magnitude 4.1 earthquake today. That's a big earthquake. It's not showing up at the USGS for some reason, but we see here at 12:26, I'm not sure this is local time or this is UTC time, at 12:26 UTC, so just a few hours ago, about what, 7 hours ago, we had a magnitude 4.1 earthquake strike the Canary Islands after we've had thousands and thousands of earthquakes as a part of that earthquake swarm. And they're not showing all the earthquakes for that swarm there, but this is basically a volcanic system, right? These are all volcanoes, most of them at least. And so the question is, are they waking up? Well, we aren't seeing ground deformation at these sites yet. And we're not seeing any increase in gases or anything. But, well, you have an earthquake swarm, like a lot of earthquakes, and now 4.1, clearly all connected to the volcanic system. It's worth paying attention to. If you go back here, why is that worth paying attention to? Well, we can use last year also as an example. You may recall that we had these earthquakes around Santorini and the Santorini Colombo volcanic system. That's Colombo volcano right there, undersea volcano, okay? There were more than like 15,000 earthquakes in total. A lot of them reaching up to magnitude 5, right? The cumulative magnitude for that entire tectonic swarm was about 6.5. Early on, the scientists were saying, oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's a tectonic only event, just, faults fracturing and slipping. No volcanism connected to this, even though it's happening right in a volcanic system, one of the most significant in the world, right? We have had some massive eruptions out of Santorini in the past. I mean, that's why it looks like this. The thing literally exploded the island apart, right, back in 1600 BC approximately. Well, it didn't take that long, but a few months afterwards, they crunched the data and they're like, actually, guys, it was a volcanic event. There was a massive intrusion of magma up to the surface. It did not break the surface, but up to the surface that triggered all those earthquakes. So when you get these sort of earthquake swarms, you have to, and it's in a volcanic system, that's probably what it is, right? That's the earthquakes are a part of the volcanic system. And when you get a bigger earthquake, that shows you that there's more energy there. And again, think about that destabilizing pressure wave, okay? So magnitude 4.1 just popped off there. On the other side of Africa, we have Piton de la Fornese. This is a shield volcano similar to Hawaii. It is active. I think it's active right now. If we go to our Morova data again, this allows us to see what's active at any moment in time. Here we click this. We see that the thermal anomaly at this moment in time is high. So it is erupting, and we see that this just started up. So this is the past year data. This is the last month. This is the last year. So the first time effectively in a year, starting in February, we had this active. Now, one thing to keep in mind with all this, I've talked about it ad nauseum. I'm just going to touch on it, but guys, we really need to, pay attention to what's happening in our celestial environment, because we have right now this Saturn-Neptune conjunction right here, as you can see, and that is a very powerful energetic event. And if we go by true sky positioning, we see it's happening in the constellation of Pisces, which is the fishes. It's a water element. But if you go by Western Tropical, which is interesting, if you go by the fixed reference frame of our solar system, it's happening at 0 degrees of Aries, which is cardinal fire, okay? So this isn't some imaginary made-up system. This is tracking the equinox and solstice points. 0 degrees of Aries is the exact vector angle from the sun that we have our equinox on. And that's like an initiation of energy. That's how we've traditionally tracked our calendar across time. It's a very important degree point, that 0 degrees of Aries, if we go again by our local tropical reference frame. This occurred there, speaking to there being a really big new beginning as it relates to that. And now that occurred, it was peak on the 20th of February, give or take a few days on each side because they move slowly. But in general, this entire month is characterized by this energy. And while we've been seeing all this activity start up in February, the deep earthquakes in the Ring of Fire. We have, as I just showed you, the Shield volcano there starting up in February, and so much more. We can kind of go around here too. We'll see if we go over to the Eastern Pacific. This is still Ring of Fire, mind you. Volcán de Fuego has been active. It's been active on and off. It's a pretty notable volcano for its activity, but it has also been active. We can see that clearly thanks to our Morova data, which shows us that Fuego volcano here has been active just recently, and you can see how it's been building up in its activity going forward. So this is the last year, going back to August, after Saturn and Neptune nearly made a conjunction in July. They're just 13 arc minutes apart, mind you, okay? That was about the 15th of July. We see that Fuego volcano here started to really ramp up in its activity, reaching high levels quite a few times during its time frame. And right now it's a moderate thermal anomaly, but just recently got to pretty close to high. So we're seeing activity there. Just in general, across the board, we are seeing so much activity. So I wanted to report on that for you guys, because I think that we could have quite a lot more headed our way. This seems to be a building wave of activity. We had all these deep earthquakes. Now we're seeing the volcanoes. And just in a few days, we have this total lunar eclipse, a blood moon that will be visible from the Ring of Fire. Let me show you that. So this will be total lunar, maybe this will show it right there. So this should be it right here. And let's look at our 3D map for this. And so here we see where the entire eclipse will be visible. This is the penumbral stage, the partial stage, and the total stage, which gives us that blood red color for the moon. We see that almost the entire Ring of Fire here is shown. Now, if we go over and include the other stages where part of the eclipse will be seen, right, then it hits the entire Eastern Ring of Fire and also the entire Western Ring of Fire. The only place that doesn't see this lunar eclipse at all, Europe, Middle East, Africa. I guess also parts of Antarctica too, but there's just penguins down there, okay? I'm not sure how much they're looking at, maybe more than you would think, but we're not seeing this total lunar eclipse here in Europe, Africa, or the Middle East, but most of the world will be seeing some of it. And it really is centered perfectly over the Pacific Ocean, which is the largest plate in our globe, our Earth that has different crustal plates, right? Plate tectonics. The Pacific plate is the largest. The Pacific Ocean makes up, you can look at it and see it makes up just from one half of it. It's huge, right? Tons of energy there. And this is centered directly over it. And so a few days ago, if you asked me, is something going to happen with the Ring of Fire because of the eclipse? Like maybe you can use that to forecast a little bit out. I'd be like, yeah, I think it's probably more likely, but we don't have too much data suggesting that could be the case, right? Well, now we have that data. Again, we can look here to see Kilauea volcano in the Philippines erupting today on the 26th. So a big eruption there. So I'm going to get into a question and answer for all of you. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. I'll take a few from the general audience. I'll also take any questions attached to a super thanks. If you want to make sure your question get answered, then that's just the thing to do. But before we do that, I want to remind you that we have a sale happening right now on my website, my e-store. This is earthevolution.com/store. And everything is 7% off till the end of February. So there's just a few days left, actually just like a couple of days left until the sale's over. We don't run sales that often because you really try to do our best to sell this to you at a fair and reasonable price. We make and mix these tea blends ourselves. They're all organic, super good for you. And the code to get 7% off is Be The Light, all one word. So BETHELIGHT, Be The Light. for 7% off at checkout till the end of the month. We have a ton of herb coffee in stock. This is super, super good. It's 50% single origin organic shade grown Peruvian. Yes, it's all the things, but you also add in chicory root, dandelion root, and lion's mane mushroom, making it a fantastic nootropic, really good at increasing your creativity, but also helping you stay focused and in the zone, creating flow states, neuropotentiates, and also is like neuroplastic to some degree because of the lion's mane mushroom, and it optimizes the entire microbiome, gut, brain, consciousness axis as a result of it also having the dandelion root and the chicory root, which are cousins to each other, and they are fantastic for not only your gut, but for your entire health and wellness. So this is completely in stock. It's half calf because 50% of this is coffee. The other half is all the other goodies. So you're not going to get as buzzed out either as a result of this. Not as much of a blood constriction effect and not as much of a effect to your sleep and everything. But you can still have a cup and have some fun with it. With the herb coffee, the spirituality is fantastic. If you haven't tried this, definitely pick up. All this is only available United States only, by the way. But this is purple lotus flower, mugwort, passion flower, and chamomile. Excellent for helping you rest, relax. Really good at helping you sleep. If you're having trouble sleeping, this is the one to drink. But also could potentiate your dreams. Great for meditation. Some people even report interesting experiences with astral travel with this. It's not like a psychedelic or anything, but it just seems to kind of get you into a state that helps you to maybe achieve these things of your own accord. So this is fantastic. Spirituality. No one else, as far as I know, has a tea blend like this. We make and mix it ourselves using the highest quality organic herbs. We also have some merchandise on the e-store. We have some super optical clarity quartz crystals, which are fantastic, and so much more. The Boom Shakalaka hoodie is available. This is a big winner here. Available in black, sizes small to 3XL, 7% off using the code BTheLight. Use that at checkout till the end of the month. So I wanted to just let you know that sale is still going on. We don't run them that often, and it's going till end of February. So if you've been interested in picking anything up, now's the time. If you wait, that's fine. If you get it later, hey, that's fine, right? Eventually there'll be another sale, but hey, we're thankful for every single day that we wake up. At least I am. So let's get into a question and answer. It may not be that long today. We will see. I'll take some questions from the general chat, and then I'll sign off and leave you all to it. So let me look for some. Oh, and one other thing. We have Lurking X here saying mud volcanoes part of the overall activity, a whole plate going to move. If you did not see my video that I released earlier today, we've had a mud volcano eruption in Colombia. So this was quite sudden. Mud volcanoes are not like normal volcanoes. It's really basically just a flow of hydrothermal fluid up to the surface that brings with it, as a result, creates mud, and it's bubbly, it's hot, it's gassy, and sometimes you get these big burps of methane out of them. Well, this was a big burp of methane. And so I have an entire video on that I released earlier today on my main channel. You can give that a watch if you want to learn more. We did have a mud volcano also erupt in Azerbaijan. That was quite a big eruption, or I guess explosion, methane explosion, back on January 30th of this year. So there's been more activity, it seems, from the mud volcanoes as well. So regular volcanic activity, mud volcano activity, yeah, there's a lot of things happening. Is a whole plate going to move? Well, I mean, the plates are always moving. I'm not sure how much you're moving, but are we going to see like some massive crustal displacement? I don't think so. I think it's probably a little bit of a fairy tale based off of what I know and the geologic evidence in the record. But we are seeing plates move as a result of earthquakes. And, if we do get a sudden shift in movement, like what happened with Kamchatka, keep that in mind right up here back in July of 25. That was a big plate movement. Then all the volcanoes started going nuts. So yeah, there's something to that for sure. And M083 says it may just be that there's a connection in deep earthquakes, as in suddenly the frequency of deep earthquakes suddenly increases. Do you think maybe there's some kind of pattern here? So I think you're referencing the deep earthquakes and volcanoes. It's possible. I would personally need to go back and look through the record of deep earthquakes and volcanic activity and do that multiple times over the data that we have to definitively say yes or no, there's a pattern there. But based off of what I've seen since I've really been doing this, because we've been tracking that closely, right, it does seem there is a connection. And there is some, pretty simple geophysics that helps us understand that as well. Simply the seismic wave passing through can destabilize some of these, the melt within these magma chambers, and perhaps cause an exsolution to occur. And then that just causes the whole system to kind of tip over, and then boom, shakalaka, there you go. So, but I personally don't think it's coincidence that we're having these deep earthquakes right now, and now we're having the volcanoes follow up afterwards. I think that's really quite extraordinary. And Tessa Sellers is asking, do you think it's possible to have some sort of mega Godzilla event or chain reaction in the Ring of Fire? I mean, at any time we can have a mega Godzilla event. So we have Kilauea volcano here in Japan. Let me type that in. I think it's something like this. This eruption occurred, I believe it is, yeah, here it is. Here's Kilauea caldera. This eruption occurred either 7,300 years ago or 7,300 BC. I think it was 7,300 years ago, but a massive, massive, massive eruption. There are pyroclastic flows all around this caldera, and there was ash that went up all the way to where Tokyo is. So ashfall deposits all the way to where Tokyo is. And we don't know what sort of buildup, was building up for that. Like, was there a year of like increasing earthquakes and mini eruptions? Probably. I don't think you have something happen like that without a little bit of heads up and warning, because these things do take some time. But we do sometimes see with volcanoes that they just, boom, there they go. Like they're just like a match ready to be lit. So when I discussed this it was actually July of last year, we were talking about this, I dubbed that a Godzilla event, because they also modeled the tsunamis generated by that. And these tsunamis were tens of meters tall, like mega tsunamis, like 100 meters tall, or something crazy. It's like either 100 feet. Just basically, you wouldn't want to encounter that wave of water, okay? So I dubbed it a Godzilla event. We've seen Godzilla events, in the past, and we're definitely going to see Godzilla events in the future. The Earth is going to continue to do these things. They actually occur fairly regularly on a geologic timescale. So is one due sometime soon, or chain reaction in the Ring of Fire? It's possible. Hopefully it doesn't occur. Would I bet on that probability? No, I think that's probably a very low probability, unless we were to have very clear, obvious signs that something was wrong, like we did back up with Kamchatka in July before the magnitude 8.8. There was warning signs there. There's been warning signs. For example, Japan, November of last year, December, we had anomalous earthquake activity before that 7.6 earthquake. We forecasted out both of those accurately here on the channel. So we're not seeing that sort of activity. We're seeing more widespread diffuse volcanic activity. Maybe that is kind of what's going to be occurring as we go forward. And that does seem to be resonating with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And a question from Logatha is, do you think since the Earth is charged up, this correlates with the magma heating up also? Yeah, I think that's probably one of the primary mechanisms here, is that Earth is embedded within the electromagnetic field generated by the sun, just as the sun in our solar system is embedded within the electromagnetic field of interstellar space. And that's within the galaxy, where there are rhythms and fluctuations to this. And so during solar maximum, you just in general have more energy being broadcast out from the sun. This charges up the electric field. And there's no way around it. That is going to influence our planet, not just at the surface with our atmosphere and in outer space, the exosphere, but also down in the lithosphere, in the mantle, and through the core. And so you have the global electric circuit overall charged up, but you also have just the base fundamental electric field of the heliosphere more charged than it is during solar minimum, and the Earth is taking that in. One interesting thing also about this solar cycle is that the solar flares that we've been having a lot of solar flares, they have been stronger in the lower frequencies than we've seen in prior solar cycles. So this is like 30 megahertz, 50 megahertz. These are solar radio bursts in the megahertz spectrum. But for some reason, we've been picking them up more in that lower frequency than we have typically in the past. Those sort of frequencies pierce deeper into the planet. And that is those microwave frequencies literally heat up the Earth. So how significant is hard to say, but we do seem to be having some sort of overall energization of the Earth. And I don't think it's major, but it does seem to be unique and also trackable with what we've been looking at here. So yeah, I think that's a very plausible idea that we need to explore more and get more data on, but certainly is worth considering and researching more into. And John here following up, after what we have received from the sun, the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes are to be expected. I agree 100%. To think that the sun does not have an effect on the Earth energetically, geophysically, geologically is just so foolish. It blows my mind. But we will get there. We will get there. So I'm going to go to the super thanks now. And do you think the U.S. military takes space weather into account with their military strikes? I don't know. I mean, if they're smart, they would. It would be most important to do that as it relates to maybe missile guidance systems. Because if there's a geomagnetic storm, perhaps I can throw missile guidance systems off because maybe it's relying on GPS, right? There's a few ways that they work, but in general, it's GPS, I would think. So if GPS is out, missiles are going to go nuts. Now, the chances of all that aligning, I think, is probably pretty slim. You probably normally don't have to worry about it. But yeah, they take this stuff into account. They take into account the phase of the moon, right? You're going to have a much better chance of slipping in undetected if you're like a stealth plane or if you're sending out missiles if it's a new moon and it's dark in the sky. You don't have any moonlight reflecting and brightening up objects. So if they're taking into account the moon phase, you know they're probably taking into account something like a geostorm that's occurring or not occurring, right? I'd imagine, but how much they weight it and how much it affects their planning, I don't know. This is just my speculation. You know, I've never been in the military, so I can't give you an actual answer, but it would make sense. So thank you for that super thanks, James. And Ravens Wolf, with the increase in Earth core heating and plate shifting, i.e. quakes, how feasible would it be for the whole tectonic plate structure to shift, i.e. planet quake and 2012? That would be quite remarkable. You're thinking of crustal displacement, which is an idea that was proposed by Charles Hapgood in the 60s, I believe, where you get the Earth to heat up such that the plates actually like shift along effectively a molten Earth. But this kind of breaks down because the inner Earth, like the asthenosphere, the mantle, already is molten. There's a tremendous amount of heat there and pressure. It's the pressure that effectively holds that in, right, and makes it viscous. But it's super, super viscous, like beyond honey. So it's not liquid, and that pressure is not going to change because you have the weight of the Earth holding it down. So I don't think these minerals can undergo phase transition such to allow that to occur. It's an interesting idea, but we don't really see evidence of that geologically because that would basically destroy the planet, and the geology would certainly be reflective of that, and that's simply not the case. In terms of catastrophes, you know, we have evidence of mega floods across the United States, also across Europe from the Laurentide ice sheet. So there's evidence of things like that. But in terms of entire plate, like everything shifting 180 degrees on the globe with 5,000 foot tall tsunamis, like, guys, we're not seeing it. We're just simply not seeing it. But it's an interesting idea, but in my opinion, only as a jumping off point to learn more about the Earth and to actually learn what's happening. I don't think that's a feasible thing to occur. Philip, thank you for the super thanks. And Lab, Stefan, do you track your early predictions against observed outcomes to get an accuracy estimate? I recommend to help to get your message out. Yeah, I was doing that. I mean, I do have a Google spreadsheet, and the track record initially is pretty good, but I don't know. I just stopped filling out the Google sheet. I can't really tell you why, to be honest. It was just kind of making it more work than it seems. I should get back on that. I mean, the main predictions are on there, so it wouldn't take much to update. But the big thing for me is, okay, you're putting out forecasts. Okay, so it's not really about predictions. I know they're similar, but it's more about forecasting. So, with a forecast, technically you're never wrong, because a forecast will say, okay, there's, let's say, a 50% chance of rain here, and then there's a 30% chance it's sunny and a 20% chance of wind. Well, if the wind hits, you said there was going to be a chance of wind. So your goal is to make your forecast percentages as accurate as possible, and hopefully you're giving people the heads up on the one that actually occurs, because you may say 20%, but actually it is 100% because that's what occurs, right? So the forecasting is different than prediction. Prediction is often like a specific date, like, people are giving a prediction for California that on the 18th of February, there was going to be this quake that killed millions of people. That didn't occur, thankfully. It was just some nonsense prediction that was made and that got traction online, because anytime a California mega quake gets brought up, so people roll with it because for whatever reason. I don't want to get into it. But that's different than a forecast of, hey, we're seeing anomalous earthquake activity. We're more likely to get an earthquake here, perhaps for the next 6 weeks or something. So as it relates to the biggest events of the past couple years, I've been pretty good with getting those forecasts. The magnitude 8.8 megaquake in Kamchatka, Russia, the magnitude 7.6, Japan, 6.5 in Mexico fairly recently. Global earthquake seismicity trends, we've been tracking that fairly accurately. So I'm not sure me keeping a Google spreadsheet, initially I was like, that's going to make a difference. I just don't know. People believe you or they don't. That's kind of what it is. And to look through the record of all my videos to track against that is too much for some people in terms of time commitment. So they'll just choose, what, there's nothing there. The guy's a quack. I'm not going to look at it. Even though I have some very clear video evidence, like, for example, before the magnitude 8.8 megaquake, 3 days before, we're talking about that. I even created like a compilation clip afterwards, but people will choose to ignore what they want to ignore. So, but yeah, appreciate your super thanks. And with time, I think it's really just time. The more I can stay accurate on top of it in general, getting things right, the more it just becomes self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Kimmy, thank you for the super thanks. And Baker Street, thank you for the super thanks. We had a 3.0 earthquake in Irmo, South Carolina, USA today. Yeah, there's been some earthquakes in South Carolina recently, just like low magnitude 2s, I guess now a magnitude 3, though I would have to check to see how accurate that number is. So here we have that, and it is a magnitude 3 there in South Carolina. So some new activity around, it looks like Columbia, South Carolina, which is interesting. It's definitely worth paying attention to. We go here, 30 days, all magnitudes, and we see that there's actually been quite a few in this area, as we can see. And magnitude 3 being the strongest now, and shallow, but I wouldn't be necessarily concerned about there being all of a sudden a magnitude 6. Hey, possible we see other earthquakes down here in South Carolina. We do get earthquakes on the East Coast. It's not impossible. There has been a little bit of an uptick, though. I will say that. There's been a little bit of an uptick with the earthquakes along the East Coast, but still nothing that would have me running for the hills, okay? So thank you for your super thanks. Kimmy, thank you once again for another super thanks. And cynical subject, random question, have you ever played around with astral projection? Yeah, I have, more so when I was younger. It seemed to naturally kind of reach those states a little bit easier. To keep it really simple, sometimes when you're falling asleep, you can actually keep your conscious mind on as your body goes to sleep. And then there's a stage beyond that where your body will start to shake. Like you'll feel, actually, it's your body's not shaking, but you feel this shaking sensation. And that can kind of be a little trippy. I was able to get past that once. I was actually like, I felt like I was slipping out of my body once, but my arm got caught. And I guess this is a common thing that you think of something. In reality, your arm's not getting caught, but you just have like a mental hang up over it. And then as a result, I wasn't able to complete it. But there's too many people out there who are astral projecting out of body experiences and more for it to not be true. So I should play with it more. Maybe I will. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy with just Dreamland. So thank you for the super thanks. And Gray Scout Epsilon, thank you for the super thanks as well. And also Snail Burner, thank you for that. So with that, we are going to, I'm going to sign off. Thank you all so much. Well, we have one more here, just came in from Elo938. What do you think about volcanoes in Guatemala becoming active? Volcán del Fuego, del Agua, a few other mud volcanoes in that area. We discussed that earlier in the live stream, so maybe you didn't catch that. But yeah, Volcán de Fuego has been active. Agua has been active as well. We just had that mud volcano eruption in Colombia right around these parts here. So yeah, this is all part of the Ring of Fire, and we are seeing increasing activity, not just in the Eastern Pacific Ring of Fire, or sorry, Western Pacific Ring of Fire, also the Eastern Pacific Ring of Fire as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date on everything that's happening with the Earth energetically, like we discussed in this video. And remember, we have a 7% off sale happening right now at earthevolution.com/store using the code BeTheLight, all one word. You can click that to go right there. Thanks so much and have a great day.